Fit Tip? We want to hear about it. Simply log on to coasttocoastsports.net. Under Contact Us tab to book. Health and wellness, making life better one day at a time. Hey everyone, Ben Robinson here with another Fit Tip moment. We're here today with Gilles Lamoureux, and we're talking about health and wellness, making life better one day at a time. Gilles, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, your practice, and what you do?
The practice is called Guided Digital Homeopathics, and the focus is on testing the body for health or illness, and basically going from there and providing homeopathic remedies to solve any problem, health issue. Yeah.
All right. You know what's interesting is that, and what actually brought me to you, I had a surgery of my own. My gallbladder was failing, and I was searching for a number of different things that I could do to help alleviate the pain that I was going through. If I was aware that this service was available, it definitely would have been somewhere that I would have come before going under the knife.
Right.
So can you share with me a little bit about maybe the questions or the vetting process of how you would try to work with a potential patient?
The practice basically will cover any illness or disease in most cases. And basically there's 3 steps. The first step is basically screening 4 major systems in the body. And the second step would be to find out which organs are stressed in each one of those systems and which harmful agent may be associated with that. And then the third step is basically sorting all that out. That's the major component, because detecting a problem and sorting it out is very different. So there's basically 3 steps, and in the case of a gallbladder or any issue with digestion, that would be the digestive system, and gallbladder would be the organ associated. And doing the same thing with the other systems and sorting out all those organs is that final step. And from there, remedies are made for each stressed organ and each harmful agent that we detected.
You know, what that reminds me of a little bit is like, how do I explain this? Taking your vehicle into a shop for a 30-point inspection, checking over the fluids, the engine, just making sure that everything is running right. So I guess really, regardless of what organ it is, the brain, gallbladder, your check down through your inspection is really a thorough one that will help identify the stressed organ.
Right.
In addition to also trying to heal that process through those steps. So why don't you touch a little bit on that for me about those steps that you would go through? I know you just vaguely just now touched on it, but in that analogy of a vehicle, give me an example as me being the vehicle.
If you're here and you're lying down, I'm able to test you physically, and I do that at the ankles. And I check those on the first step, or the first phase is the 4 major systems in your body. And I'm seeking, which ones are primarily stressed. And once I've done that, I will basically get to key organs in each one of those systems to find out specifically which organs are stressed. And that's basically the preliminary first 2 steps, right? So you've got 4 systems, organs in each one, and then the final step, which is the third. There's 15 other steps or levels where all that gets sorted out. And that's quite time consuming. That's the most arduous part of the whole process. And at the end of that, I'll have sorted, the organs that are stressed and all the harmful agents associated, but they'll be prioritized because of that third step. It'll be all in priority. And you'll walk away once that's completed, the test is complete, then I make the remedies. So they're made for you according to what we discovered, and that could be different. It's different for everyone, right? Depending on the issue. If it's a gallbladder issue, by and large, that's going to be near the top of the list, and there's going to be support organs to deal with that. So you walk away maybe with 14. If somebody's really ill, you're looking at about 24 remedies, and each one of those remedies is basically one drop each, nothing more. And that's all that's required, because it's in some quarters they call this informational medicine. So it basically clears the whole terrain, and that's why that third step's important, so we can prioritize each organ and each harmful agent that comes up.
I think another harmful agent also is stress.
Yeah.
I'd have to believe that if the brain is stressed, maybe the number one organ, there's potential for a lot of other organs to fail.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're now talking a little bit, not so much, well, I guess two ways. We would be looking at the preventative form of stress, which would be maybe take breaks in your day for yourself. But above and beyond that, if an organ is now stressed, you need to relieve that and find some remedy for that. And I think that's what you're talking about, is alleviating the stress of the organ, correct?
Right. In common terminology, you're looking at inflammation. But we get closer, we get earlier than that. Inflammation is kind of, a distant outcome. We're basically looking at when one organ is really not performing in conjunction with other organs. So it's a systemic issue. And that's important. So we don't wait until there is an inflammation problem. But inflammation is a good example of what stress might look like from a medical point of view. This happens way before. This is energetic or bioenergetics. So we detect the stress far earlier than that. And the history is very important. So there's quite a bit of documentation going on here. I'll need a good history, because history tells me where the stress started. Like how long has this been going on? I do get clients who come in who just come in for an oil change.
Right.
Basically, they'll come in and they got this family history, maybe heart issues. You don't know you have a heart issue sometimes until you have the heart attack, right? Everything seems to be fine. So they come in and I do all the testing, and surprisingly, we do find issues that are starting to get worse, right?
And
because of that history, right?
Right, and I completely agree. I remember myself, my surgery was in 2018. But long before that, 2012, I was showing symptoms of being sick. So I can appreciate where you're coming from, and that you need a good history. One part that I think is key that we should talk about is actually the empathy, the psychotherapy aspect of it, because I think that's also where healing begins. When I went through the process of having my surgery, the medical profession, obviously, yes, they treat me great, and thankful very much for the surgery and trying to recover still at today's point in time. But the fact that we're sitting here having this conversation and you're listening, I think that's where a lot of the healing has begun. So that is a terrific place to be. And just by my guard being down, it gives an opportunity for all of this other great energy to start to flow.
Right.
And when you and I are having conversations, it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. We're kind of feeding off of each other for this healing process to take place. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Consultation is free, and that's to make it inviting. Oftentimes, if it's not, especially with my U.S. clients, in the U.S., doctors are paid for consultation, and that creates some roadblocks. So I open the door. So, people who are curious, it gives them a chance to be more open-minded about what I might be offering. And so that's really, really important. And then there's the body language, right? It says a lot about part of the history they might not have filled out. And I need to know that. We do deal with trauma. That's more the traditional homeopathy, the emotional and physical trauma. There are particular remedies just for that, and I can test for that as well. So that gets applied, and if I don't get this relationship going properly, on the right footing, I might not be able to detect that. It has to be part of the makeup of the relationship. And bioenergetic testing is interesting and kind of unusual in that my temperament, who I am and how I perceive health, has an effect on the actual testing. We are, I mean, you know, our brain, you mentioned the brain, right? And your thoughts, all these things play a part in your health. And so it plays a part in this practice as well.
I think another key part that would probably come into the practice and the point of healing is commitment.
Right.
And we haven't really talked about what the journey is, but maybe let's touch on that a little bit, because what is the commitment that is required to take this step? I mean, a good example here would be a doctor once asked me, the surgeon, if I was to have that surgery to save my life, would I do it? I'm here today, the answer is definitely. You know, even if I came out not being able to stand straight for the rest of my life, maybe the quality of life wouldn't be great, but I would have health. I'd have my life.
Right.
So, you know, could we just touch on that a little bit? What's the commitment aspect?
Well, one advantage with what I do, it's not invasive. Even if you're thinking, you know, if you get past the medical, the surgical aspect of things, or even medication, even supplementation, which is, we understand to be more natural. This is even far beyond it. The basic ingredients in here is energetic. The actual chemical compound is water. So it's completely non-invasive. So in terms of risk, it's bare minimum.
Right.
Now, the intriguing part of it, though, is that this is a sensitive practice. I've basically explained what I did, but there's some pretty hefty participation on the part of the client. I mean, they have to commit themselves. These remedies and the vials that we test with and the remedies and the body are sensitive to electromagnetics. So when you take the remedies, there's some commitment in terms of limiting your exposure to electromagnetics for a minimum of 24 hours while you take the remedies. So that takes some commitment and some scheduling and some planning, especially if you have a busy family. They have to participate to some degree. Or if you have friends for support, to keep you kind of on track. The same way you would be on a diet or an exercise or training regime. There is some commitment over a period of time. And in very, very rare cases, one treatment will suffice. I've had newborn with parasites. One session, perfectly fine. They have no history in this world. But an adult with chronic illness, a single treatment would be highly unusual to correct a problem. So there's commitment in terms of time as well.
Right.
Not just the exposure to electromagnetics while you take the remedies, but to multiple treatments over time is important with this, because a lot of it is preventative. A lot of it is, it's not dealing with symptoms or actual disease. It's dealing with the actual cause, which over time, or I should say, it took time to get where you are now. And we got to reverse that.
Right.
That's time consuming. And no one gets back into shape overnight.
Right.
I mean,
Well, that really hits the nail on the head and puts it into perspective.
Right.
I mean, we have to understand that it's taken us a number of years to get the body to where it has gotten to.
Exactly.
So in the reverse aspect of that, it would also take that prolonged period of time to try to heal.
Exactly.
So people have to be open-minded to things, not to expect to come in and get instant results because they tried something new.
Right. So that's part of the. I mean, there's a different view of health when you, like a holistic treatment is by and large how it works. So you have to think more holistically, which means that it took me some time to get here. It's going to take me some time to reverse it.
Right.
And to me, that's the real definition of health. Is that you're on this journey. Obviously, you got here. Now you got to reverse that before you move on.
Right.
So the history is obviously important. The traumatic, emotional history, all that is part of the fabric of who you are at this stage in the game, and so it has to be reversed.
Jill, I say very leading edge stuff here that you're working on. I encourage you to keep pushing through with this. When we're talking about health and wellness, we're not talking about just your everyday things.
Right.
Health and wellness could mean a lot of things in a cycle. It's made up of financial literacy, family life, a whole slew of things on a wheel that make you a happy person at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time to speak to us about your practice, and we encourage you here to get out and encourage you to look at new aspects and things that make you happy in life. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
Fit tip? We want to hear about it. Simply log on to coasttocoastsports.net under Contact Us tab to book. Health and wellness, making life better one day at a time.